So, Harriet Tubman is known as an abolitionist. She's known as the woman who was a very important historical figure who was born into slavery, escaped slavery, and then went on to do 13 rescue missions to help rescue enslaved people. That is what she is known as. But one thing that I don't hear about a lot in the conversation is the mysterious nature of how she believed that she was able to help rescue these enslaved people. It left me asking the question, was she a psychic? Was she a prophet? Like, what was she? What were these abilities of hers? How was she able to tap into them? And so that is what I want to explore today. And I want to explore the implications of it for us now. So was Harriet Tubman a psychic? Of course, the first question that we have to ask is, why am I even asking that question? What provoked this question in me? The first thing is because Harriet Tubman had some psychic experiences, One thing that psychics have is the ability to know things in a way that isn't logical, sometimes through just impressions, sometimes through dreams, sometimes through visions. And Harriet Tubman had dreams and visions that she believed were guiding her, that she saw as guiding her, specifically on the Underground Railroad. But my understanding is that she had dreams and visions throughout her life, right? So that's the first thing. She was doing psychic stuff, right? So that's number one. The second one is that the reason why I asked the question, the reason why I even became interested is because I've been a bit haunted by this idea that we can know things, that we can just know things as humans, So of course we have the people that we label as like psychics, prophets, whatever, right? But all of us have access to this ability, right, to know things. So if you think everyone I've met has a story, right, where it's like, oh yeah, like I really felt like I shouldn't go there, and so I did it, and this crazy thing ended up happening. Or, I did go and you experienced this like traumatic event or whatever. Like everybody has some version of that story, and that reality and that ability of the human has been haunting me since 2020. Why 2020? Because in 2020, I left organized religion, and it just threw me into a place of question mark, right? Like you want to be like, organized religion is always like, I know this is the truth. This is the way. There is no gray. There is black and white, right? Generally speaking. And things like this ability, this knowing that humans are capable of, put me in that gray after a life of forcing myself into the black and white. And that's uncomfortable, It's uncomfortable. And so I think it was just like these 4 years, it's 2024 now, these 4 years of like being haunted by this ability of humans. And then for whatever reason this year in February, it was of course Black History Month. And it just became like, it came to my conscious awareness that Harriet Tubman contributed a key part of her ability to navigate the Underground Railroad to dreams and visions. And these things just kind of like came together for me and just had me like, wow, I feel like this is something I need to talk about and I want to talk about more. So here I am doing that. I thought it would be interesting to talk as we talk about Harriet's abilities and the implications of her abilities and where they come from and all of that. I thought it would be interesting to start with like when they started for her. So the historically accepted story, or the common narrative that you will hear is that when she was 13 years old, she was hit in the head by an overseer of a plantation because she was born into slavery, which even saying that, makes me want to throw up. It's like just to think that that's even possible. But she was born into slavery, and an overseer, in trying to hit a runaway, someone who was running away, ended up hitting her. And as a result, she actually suffered from illness throughout her entire life. And one of the things that they contribute as well was the dreams and visions that she had. Now, I don't know if Harriet saw the visions and dreams that she had as a result of that, but that's the story. That's the way it's typically told. That's where it comes from. The one thing that we do know is that she took these visions and dreams serious, and she took them as a guide for her life. Sometimes even in our lives, when we talk about like, oh, if we get like a hunch or something like that, like, or we feel like, oh, I shouldn't do this or I should go there or whatever, like sometimes we ignore them. But Harriet didn't see the visions and dreams that she was given as something to ignore. Instead, she saw them as something that was very important to pay attention to. So was Harriet Tubman a psychic? Did she possess psychic powers? I think a lot of times people think of psychics as people who can just see the future. But generally a psychic, there's like a lot of different, like we know of like clairaudience. So you hear things, right? And you receive knowledge, but it's really just about like knowledge that you receive, right? Through like ways that are not the five senses. That's really what being a psychic focuses on. So it's not necessarily about the future. It could be me knowing something about someone who I'm in the room with right now, right? And so I think it's a legitimate question because of that, because what a psychic entails. But the reality is that Harriet Tubman was a devout Christian, even though I was hoping I was hoping in my like research to find something like, I don't know, that she had this like esoteric belief or something, but I didn't find that. She was a devout Christian. So, and I want to respect that. I don't think that she would call herself a psychic. I don't think. Would she call herself a prophet? I have no idea, right? Because that's more like rooted in, or it's more associated with Christianity and accepted in Christianity. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what she would label herself. But one thing that we can say is that Harriet Tubman was able to harness the power of intuition in a super powerful way. And I want to focus on that a little bit. And what are the implications of that? Okay, so if I am saying that intuition played a key role in Harriet Tubman making the historical changes that she did, then we should probably get into defining what is intuition. So I have a definition here from Merriam-Webster that I'm going to read. So Merriam-Webster says that intuition is the power or faculty of attaining to direct knowledge or cognition without evident rational thought or inference. And so, actually, it's evident rational thought and inference. So what I like about this definition and what I like about intuition in general, what I find interesting about intuition in general, is that it's not really married to a particular belief system or a particular spiritual identity, like psychic or prophet or anything like that. Rather, it's more about the way that you attain knowledge, or really even the way that you don't attain knowledge. And it's not through pure rationality. That's really what it is. And I do like that that's kind of like highlighted there in the definition, because it says without evident rational thought and inference. And I appreciate that, because I think nowadays the logical and the intuitive are like, there's this false dichotomy between them. There's this like split between them that is so black and white. And it's like, I don't think humans actually operate like that. So I do appreciate that it's more just like, okay, there could be there's like space in the definition for like, okay, there could be some rationality, but let's say the person having the intuitive idea is not necessarily understanding like where it's coming from or whatever. There's just room for the rational and the logical to meet. And I appreciate that. So in the context of Harriet, we can say that she was able to use her intuition, her ability to attain knowledge outside of pure rationality. She was able to use that to do very powerful things in history, to make these rescue missions and save people who were enslaved. Like these dangerous missions, this very brave thing. She's saying that a key component, and I will say not the only component, of course, the Underground Railroad, there was a safe house system set up, right? So it's not like that was the only thing, that was the only way, but she saw it as important. She took these visions and dreams, this intuition, she took it serious and applied it into her life, right? Applied it into like what routes to take, what routes to not take. And I just feel like we should sit with that. I kind of hate that language. Let's sit with that. But I just think that that's something to like think about seriously, like to really think about. And for me, it's something that I can't not think about. It's been haunting me. And then I think we have to talk about the implications of this, because there have to be implications of using the intuition to do such powerful things. So let's talk about these implications. So what are the implications of the way that Harriet was able to use her intuition to make such monumental changes in history? What are the implications? I will say for me personally, the effects that this has had on my life, if I had to give one word to it, it would be the word disruption. Okay? It's been very disruptive. Listen, disruption is not a bad thing all the time. Disruption just means, a cycle is going on, a routine is going on, and then something stands in the way of it and disrupts that cycle. But, sometimes cycles and routines need to be interrupted. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's disruptive. Particularly, it's disruptive to the hopelessness that we have grown accustomed to or let's say that I have grown accustomed to. I'll speak for myself, but just this hopelessness in the sphere of like politics and social justice. It's like, it's so easy to feel cynical, to feel like things are impossible. But if this is true, it's like, how can anything be impossible? And that's not to say that the way that intuition hit or came to or was experienced by Harriet is the way that it will be experienced by someone else. But that's not really the point. To me, it just makes anything possible. And it confronts hopelessness. It confronts, that's just the way it is when it comes to social justice, when it comes to politics. And it makes me question what can be done if we actually decided as individuals, as a collective, to give into those intuitive hits, however they come to us. Like I said, not everybody's going to be visions and dreams or whatever, but we all have those gut feelings, and so what would happen if we gave into them, in those spheres? And I don't just think it's relevant for the political sphere. I think it's also relevant just for the mundane. So let's talk about it in the area of the mundane as well. So hearing about Harriet's use of intuition not only made me think about what is possible in the political sphere, in the social justice sphere, but it also was disruptive or is disruptive to my everyday life, because the reality is that I was born into the life that she really fought for at the end of the day, and it's not really a thing of shame. Like, look at the circumstances that Harriet was in, and she used her intuition in this way. And it's not that. It's an invitation. It's not only an invitation, it's also like you can see what happened when she honored that and take it as an invitation to honor it in your own life, whatever that looks like for you. And so that's what it feels like to me, but it's still disruptive, just to think, because I just think it takes the idea of what is possible and it makes it infinite. Because if you are able to receive insight into where to go and not to go through your intuition, through visions and dreams, what is not possible? How are you supposed to just live a normal life after knowing that? That is what I've been asking myself, honestly. Like, how am I just supposed to, okay, yeah, I don't know, be a normal person after that? It introduces a wildness that I think is literally taken out of us since the day we're born by every system that exists, at least in the West. When I think about the familial system, when I think about the school system, when I think about religious systems, like there's this wildness that needs to be tamed. And intuition, it doesn't adhere to that wildness, right? Like even just the idea of like getting this vision, a clear vision or a dream that tells you to do something that's gonna, in Harriet's case, change the world, like, and to take that serious. That's a big step in this world that I feel like wants us to be more in the herd, But in thinking about this, and thinking about the power of intuition, I began to think about the things that have happened in general in the world when intuition has been embraced, and the things that would never happen if it wasn't embraced. And so it led me down this whole thought experiment. Okay. So say you're in the 1900s, say you're in the year 1900, right? You're a person in the year 1900 and you're in your 20s. Okay. And you have this feeling, this gut feeling that you want to fly like a bird. Even now, a little bit crazy, sounds a little bit wild, right? And you've always felt this though. When you were a child, you felt this as well. Like you just had this gut feeling that like, I want to fly and I think it's possible. It's a gut feeling, right? And as a child, of course, it's like, yeah, okay, all children see insects, see birds, and they're like, bet, that's what I want. That's what I want for my life, right? I think there is like a human like calling to fly, like desire to fly. I don't know. But when you become an adult, right? We're in the year 1900s. We're an adult. We're in our 20s. We have responsibilities and we need to keep our head down, and we can't let the wildness of the idea that I want to fly and I think it's possible to fly. We can't let that wildness interrupt our responsibilities and the things we have to do. We can't make room for our wildness, because where does it end? Like what? Like what happens if you open yourself up to that, Well, we know what happens, right? We know that at some point, someone opened themselves up to the idea that, yeah, humans can fly like birds. And they took it serious. But of course, it started as like I think this can happen. And I'm going to make it happen. And that is wild. And I'm going to pursue it. And I'm going to go down this road and see what happens. Like, that's really, really wild. But if no one ever did that, we wouldn't have airplanes. If no one ever did that, if no one ever gave themselves to these wild hunches, to these intuitive hits, whether they come through visions or whatever they come through, if no one ever gave themselves to that, we wouldn't have certain freedoms. We wouldn't have, Harriet's powerful, abilities and what she accomplished on the Underground Railroad, the saving of people, the rescuing of people, of enslaved people, right? Like we wouldn't have these huge things. We wouldn't have inventions, right? So I just kind of went off on a tangent, like after Harriet, just kind of like, listen, I'm ADHD. So my mind just like started making connections, and I'm just like, it's like, yeah, that's scary. But at the same time, it's like, think about, we wouldn't have anything. We wouldn't have any inventions and any historical moments that are actually positive. They wouldn't exist if no one gave into this impulse of the intuitive, right? And so, yeah, I just see Harriet's story from a personal point of view, because I think there's a communal point of view and then the personal point of view and the everyday point of view. I just see it as an invitation. I see both as an invitation to embrace this wildness. And of course, it's going to look different for everyone. Not everyone is going to end up with some crazy invention, but don't you want to know what you will end up with? I don't know. That's the question that has been driving me. Like, don't you want to know where it's going to lead you? So that's me. Those are my thoughts those are the thoughts that I've been having since February, since I really like sat with the idea of like, oh, Harriet used visions and dreams to navigate the Underground Railroad. That was key for her. What does that mean about life? How do you live life after that? So that's me. Those are my thoughts, my feelings. I would love to know what you think, how you feel, if you've sat with this at all. So let me know down below. And if you want to hear more from me, more content, I have my newsletter linked down below. And of course, like and subscribe. And that's it.